So I'm a huge fan of Metroidvania games. I just played through all of Metroid Samus Returns. Definitely one of my favorite Metroid games. I'm a huge fan of the 2D style Metroids, even though I've never played Super, which everyone says is the best. Sega kid for life. What are you gonna do about it? Fight me! But I've also been a huge fan of the Castlevania series. I didn't really play any of the old NES Castlevania games or the Super Nintendo one. I didn't have an NES or Super Nintendo as a kid, so all that shit I fucking missed. I am too lazy to play them now, but I was a huge GBA buff, so I played Castlevania Circle of the Moon, Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance, and Castlevania Aria of Sorrow. Love those three games. Love the Metroid GBA games. Loved Samus Returns. Haven't played AM2R yet, but I definitely want to. And right now I'm powering through Metroid Prime, which I was skeptical of at first, but is growing on me and quickly becoming one of my favorite Metroid games. So needless to say, I really love this genre, and while I haven't delved too far into like the derivative titles that kind of came in the indie scene based upon them, the core parts of Metroidvania, Metroid, Castlevania, huge fan of, really like them. Today I want to talk about the differences between Metroid and Castlevania in their Metroidvania sort of forms, and which one I kind of prefer, because I wanted to play Zero Mission again before I bought Samus Returns. I just played through that, and then like 2 weeks before on the PCP we talked about favorite game consoles and I was evangelizing the GBA, so I went back and played Circle of the Moon again for a little bit, and it aged incredibly well and I had fun with both of them. But playing these three games very close to each other made me realize something that I didn't really notice about the games until now, looking at them with a more of a critical lens. And that's, while if you twisted my arm over it, which do you prefer, Metroid or Castlevania, I would probably go with Metroid due to ambiance, theming, and just, I don't know, I guess some more intangible stuff that I need more time to sit on and really come to a coherent conclusion on. There is something about Castlevania that Metroid lacks that really bothers me, I guess, something that I really wish Metroid had more of, and that's constant progression. Something that I noticed playing through both Zero Mission and Samus Returns, since I had played them after revisiting Circle of the Moon for a little bit, is that I start to get impatient when playing Metroid games, because Metroid's progression is different than Castlevania's progression. Now, the map system works pretty much the same way. There's, a big, sprawling, interconnected world for the most part, Fusion and Zero Mission stuff that kind of had more segmented things. But for the most part, there's a big map, and as you get more abilities, you can explore more of the map, and you can find secrets, and you can find stuff, and that's kind of the fun of the game, is giving you this big playground to explore and realizing that there are places gated off that you can't go to yet, and it kind of fills you with a sense of wonder and intrigue and like, I can't wait to get what I need to go here and come back and see what I missed. It's this thrill of discovery. That's one of the main tenets of both these franchises in these incarnations, is being able to get more capable and re-explore places and have more paths open up for you, and the thrill of what you could find as you do it. I think most people would agree with me. I'm pretty much on point with that. I get anxious playing Metroid sometimes, and maybe anxious isn't the right word, impatient perhaps, is that Metroid's progression is very much limited by the items you get in the game. There's a sequence of 10 to 15 core power-ups in Metroid, the morph ball, the missiles, the bombs, the various suit, the gravity suit, the screw attack, these staple techniques that Metroid employs to enable its progression. And as you go through the game, that I gotta get these. You can even see certain scenarios in Metroid maps that if you played a Metroid before, I need the screw attack to get there, or I need to bomb that area when I get the bombs, and so things like that. So that's part of, I guess, the anxiety of just I already know what I need to get, and I just have to wait until I get it. But another thing is that Metroid's progression system, based around acquiring these power-ups, is very much guided. You have to get to certain parts of the game to get these power-ups, and until you get a new power-up, there's no real sense of progression. You're exploring the map, but your character isn't making any momentum until you find a new power-up for Samus, either, somewhere hidden in the map or beating a boss and getting a reward. Castlevania kind of keeps you more engaged, because in the Castlevania RPGs on the Game Boy, your character levels up, your character can get equipable items, so you still have the big core power-ups, like in Circle of the Moon you get the jump boots and the high jump and things like that. So there are these big core power-ups that do open up the map. But while you're searching for those power-ups, you still also have smaller little rewards that you continually getting. Your character levels up. You can find magic drops, especially in Aria of Sorrow does this really well with the souls. Every enemy has a chance of giving you their souls, so you get a new offensive or defensive capability in between these big core power-ups. Your character levels. You can get equipment, especially in Aria of Sorrow. You can find new weapons, which Metroid has weapons, but they're always like the beam, the charge beam, the missiles, the ice beam, the wave beam, the plasma beam. So like there's a very like linear, limited progression to your weapons increasing. Whereas in Castlevania, especially in something like Aria of Sorrow, there's dozens of weapons and they're all over the map and you're picking up and replacing them constantly, and it just, Castlevania gives you more. And I kind of wish there was something more like that in Metroid. I would love there to be some sort, I mean, maybe this is blasphemous for saying it, I'll get tons of shit for it, but I kind of wish there was sort of a continual leveling system in Metroid where as you go back and forth, because like that's a lot of the thing, there's a lot of backtracking and moving through the map multiple times looking for secrets. In Castlevania, while you're doing that, your character is getting stronger, you are leveling, you do have the chance of picking up drops from enemies. So there's this kind of almost sense of potential reward in everything you're doing. Every enemy you kill in Castlevania as you go back and forth from room to room is still giving you some sort of progress. Whereas in Metroid, there's none of that. Killing enemies does nothing but just get them out of your way. So if you're constantly going back and forth to different parts of the map, fighting them eventually becomes repetitive and it becomes a chore because it's not giving you anything tangible for your efforts. And so that's something I really miss in Metroid and would love if they would implement that at some point in the future. I love Metroid, and I think overall I'd give Metroid the nod because I think a lot of the core gameplay is really tighter, and I guess maybe that's what Nintendo focuses on, is making a really tight experience and not littering it with all these kind of smaller incremental things. But I don't know, because like you get the thrill of exploration, right? It's the thrill of like, I don't know if this next room is going to have something that I need, but Castlevania gives that with every enemy you attack. There's always the possibility of finding a random drop or finding a new weapon that is beyond the core items you need to progress. Whereas Metroid, you know that the pool of rewards is very limited. It's probably under 20 throughout the entire game. And that's another thing with Metroid. When you're looking through the map in Castlevania, you never know what you're gonna find. There's tons of different weapons, there's tons of different armors, there's tons of different, like items like gloves and things like that that can enhance your character. And then every enemy has a soul you can find. And then that's on top of all the core weapons. The secrets you find in Metroid are always 4 things: an energy tank, a missile tank, a super missile tank, or a power bomb tank. So about halfway through the game of most Metroids, missile tanks stop really being all that important. You're never gonna go through 150 to 200 missiles in a boss encounter. So missile tanks quickly lose their value. Energy tanks are always great to find because they significantly increase your health. That first energy tank literally doubles Samus's available HP, so that's a huge thing to get. Power bombs, they're never used in combat. Power bombs are literally just for puzzles. So as long as you have 2 or 3, you're always fine, because by the next time you get to a point where you need another power bomb, you've picked up the one that you've used before. And super missiles are probably the second biggest important thing with energy tanks, because you always want more super missiles because you never have as many as regular missiles, and energy tanks are always important because you need health. But as you search through the map, if you're trying to 100% it, you're never going to find anything new or anything like, whoa, I didn't expect seeing that. And that's kind of, I think, the problem with Metroid. It's become very formulaic in what it rewards you with. You know you're getting the same handful of upgrades, maybe slightly tweaked for the game, and you know that you're getting energy tanks, missile tanks, super missile tanks, and power bomb tanks. And that's it. That's all the game's going to offer you. And so there's definitely that interest in like exploring the world and seeing what you're going to find, but it is diminished slightly by the fact that you know what all the rewards are going to be going into pretty much every Metroid game. What I would love to see Metroid do if they don't add the leveling up and equipment system that Castlevania has is instead of doing the same thing that Metroid does every time, which is Samus loses all of her abilities, what if instead you started the game with everything that Metroid gives you? You start the game with the screw attack, you start the game with super missiles, you start the game with, the high-end beam. So the game has all of those kind of exploration elements throughout the map. You need to use those abilities, but as the game progresses, you get like 10 new abilities. 10 abilities that have never been in another Metroid game. So you don't lose the identity of Samus as a character, because I think the screw attack, the super missile, the power bomb, those are iconic. Like, you can't have Samus without those. Like, I'm playing through Metroid Prime, and it's pretty fucking weird that I don't do a spinny around jump when I jump, because like that's been Samus's moveset ever since the beginning. And I don't know if there's a screw attack in Prime. I don't know how they would even work it, because you'd puke if you had screw attack in first person. But that's the thing, is that I would love to keep those iconic movesets that define Samus as a character, both mechanically and just iconography wise, but then expand on that. So as you're exploring this map in this new Metroid game that exists only in my head, you have no idea what you're going to find and what's going to be added to your repertoire. Would it make the game much more complicated to develop because now you have 10 more moves you gotta have to integrate into the design of the map? Yeah, I totally agree that that would make it much more complicated, but I think it would be incredibly refreshing for a longtime Metroid player, or anyone who just played a couple and starts realizing that these things are all recurring, to have new stuff added to the mix. And maybe Metroid games wouldn't have to always be like, we're going to acquire these same items over and over again. Like, no, Samus has a moveset that we expect, and then each game can add to that moveset in different ways in each game. So the mystery and the excitement of exploring the planet that Samus is on becomes much more engaging, because you don't know what's around the next corner, as opposed to looking at an area that you can't get to in the beginning of the game and know, I need the grapple hook for that. So that's my thing. I enjoy exploration more in Castlevania, I guess, to sum it up, because I don't know what I'm going to find, because the moves are different in each game. There's different moves, there's more little drip feed upgrades available. Every enemy you kill feels like you're making progress because there is a level up system and an XP system. And I'd love to see some, if not all of those, added to Metroid to give it a bit more mystique as you uncover the world. So that's it. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you guys in the next one.